no mascot today. This is no cutesy story. You might remember my "don't watch this video Goblin Slayer" story. Well, that was tame compared to this. You've been warned. So I've been debating whether or not to actually spend the time and therapy money to recollect this and write it down. This story is a beast that makes facing down a Tarrasque look simple. You're probably thinking, oh, I've seen some horror stories. This guy probably won't be that bad. You don't understand the story of Banjo. So let's begin with the players. I was invited to this game by a friend named Dory who had only played under Banjo for Pathfinder. It was so bad that when he first joined my game 2 or 3 sessions in, he asked, "Do you not have horrible, inappropriate things happen to your players?" When I joined the campaign, I didn't understand. I was naive and thought it was just another bad DM who did weird stuff to his players. The character I brought to the game was admittedly made in bad faith, made to mess with the GM's attempts at forceful, inappropriate encounters, and generally mess with the GM. A chaotic evil fighter, anti-paladin, magical girl orc by the name of Mars. Dory was the player that I begged to join this campaign. Banjo was his first DM, and he didn't know that forceful, inappropriate encounters and having a character die for poops and giggles wasn't the norm. He played an assassin type who had a daughter that the GM made do horrible things. More on that later. Milk was the leader of our band of unfortunates. He played a ratfolk named Skitters. This ratfolk was king of our kingdom and was left to pick up the pieces normally after the GM overdid it. Victim was a fellow player that was dumb enough to play a meek, passive wife-type cleric. She eventually ended up wanting to take out her character, but not let that character get snood to death. So she ended up marrying my character, Banjo. I fear the man that can understand the mind of this creature. One shudders to think what goes on inside a twisted head of such a man. When I first was introduced to Banjo, he let me know 3 things. 1. He was one of the best GMs around. 2. He was finally happy to have an evil character in his campaign he can plot with to do things. 3. He proudly stated he translated inappropriate mangas from Japanese to English as a living. Besides players, we also have some important NPCs. Curry was Dory's adopted daughter, who rode on an invincible frog, had a gun, like just a literal Glock, and was a schizophrenic who thought murdering bad people was the only way to get her mother and father's approval. Baron Luthenir was our main antagonist. Well, at least one of the two. The Baron was an orc who had a mythic item made from a previous campaign, which did several things. 1, it gave him an intelligence score of 40, and 2, it gave him something called transcending morality. Basically, he had no alignment, and made it so that anyone a part of his kingdom was unable to refuse anything he asked of them. He was also apparently Curie's father, as in he literally did it with Dory's character 16 years prior, when Dory's character would have been like 8. Then Dory's character, not remembering anything about this, found her and adopted her. He also used his int as an excuse to literally counter us at every turn, aka metagaming to the max. We would go to impossible lengths to make sure this guy wouldn't know what we were trying to do. At one point, we literally used Mind Blank inside a mythic Archmage's sanctum, and he still would know. This man gave me the first taste of what Banjo had in store for us. When we first met him, it seemed like he was an agreeable big bad evil guy. He wanted the whole world under his foot for the greater good. Then he showed us his art. The Baron would put people into boxes as children and forced them to grow into weird, mutilated shapes, often making the women nothing more than open-legged, inappropriate toys. Once again, this is just a taste of what was in store. Apparently, the Baron was actually working for an even bigger big bad evil guy named Kron. Kron was a player character from the previous campaign that I was not a part of. Apparently, the players had to destroy the universe for reasons, and so they opted to make a new one by making a magical boot and all of them putting their mythic 20 level 40 body parts into it. And then Kron was left over to watch over the new universe as a god. I don't really remember what his end goal was in the past. I think from asking some of the other players that he wanted there to be no meat bags, only trees. There was another player character from the previous campaign, which was Dory's old character. The one time we met him, he forcefully had his way with Dory's new character, took my character out with some Ragnarok force, revived my character, inappropriately harassed her, and took her out again, and then revived her once more before wiping her memories of it all. By now, you should think that you have a grasp of what you're dealing with, except you really don't. Nothing I could say with just explaining characters could lay out what this man did to us. As Milk put it, he would think of the most messed up thing possible, then make it worse. That is the kind of campaign we played. So for today's story, I will tell you how my character got a male horse's mating organ, a Lamia slave, and was banned from a city of paladins with a demon lord inside. The earliest story I remember was not long after I joined the campaign. I think session 3 or 4. Up to that point, it had just been trying to find out where to even go, to the point we literally had no idea who the bad guy even was at this point. So we were invited, or more accurately, Milk's character was invited to a neighboring kingdom of, and this is important, hyper-lawful paladins who were so strict about evil that to even get into the city, you had to be scanned by 3 paladins. We literally had to smuggle my character into the city. So we get into the city, and Milk, Victim, and Dory all go to see what's up with the invite. My character, not being allowed to be in front of the king, or I was going to be smited, decided to go to the bars. But the city had none. Any kind of drinking was illegal, and pretty much any kind of vice was also illegal. And apparently the city paladin force had a magical item that told them when any of this was happening in the city, to the point it could detect if an evil person was in the city. The city had nearly 2.2 million people, so I figured it was going to be some kind of Mars must elude the Pallies while the party talks with the king. Wrong. My character in no time flat finds an underground place that runs a slave trade, has all the drinks you could ever want, and pretty much any other vice you could think of. And get this, it was run by a demon lord by the name of Desire. A demon lord that elected to take the form of a double G cup, adult game looking, no clothes wearing, beach blonde woman. I didn't get a choice in the matter, as the DM says, "Your character is overwhelmed with such desire that you can't stop yourself from perusing everyone, including the slaves." I wanted to quit, but like a train wreck, I had to keep watching, like a subreddit that ends up getting deleted because of how messed up it was. At that point, I accepted it, and decided to see if I could counterplay the GM. Worst decision I've ever made. I tried to play up the amount of things Mars was doing to those poor workers. She was a hot-blooded orc after all. I said she'd probably leave some of them crippled or dead. Because, like, what could be worse, right? The GM then describes my character literally snoo-snooing people to death. Think of that one scene in The Boys with the thighs. Except added my character literally enjoying it. At the end of it all, I took out 3 boys, young as age 6, mutilated several men, and left 3 women without legs. But wait, there's more. The head demoness comes out and personally greets my character, and we proceed to go to a point where not even Jesus could take the wheel, so I'm left watching this craziness as the GM describes how my character and the demoness recruit more than 8 of the city's paladins and do things that I will not recite here. The only thing you need to know is that more than one of the paladins ended up a woman and pregnant. At that point, it had been more than 30 minutes of the GM ignoring the other players to show me what stepping up to him and trying to make him step down was. I then sheepishly point out that maybe we should give the other players some time in the spotlight. I needed a good lie down, and maybe a light cry. So he ended that encounter with the demoness by giving me a gift of her marking. My very straight female orc was given a unique character trait that could not be removed. The demoness's gift was that my character grew a 16-inch male horse organ that compels you to forcibly have your way with people. I also got a new follower, who was a lamia whose venom acts like a super potent aphrodisiac, who, spoilers, also turned out to be the queen of all the lamia people and would later end up having her way with my character, sew my character's lips shut, and then take out my character. So yeah, that's how my character's day went. We swapped back over to the other players, and their day was going just about as good. The king they were meeting with was an old man that, upon seeing Dory's female assassin, instantly fell in love with her and proposed to her on the spot. He was shot down, but don't worry, he comes back later. After being shot down, he informs us of some fish people that exist and tells us how to get to them. My fellow party members were horrified. I didn't know anything about these fish people, so I asked what the issue was, but then immediately regretted it. They were the GM's custom-made race of fish people that were so super intelligent that they knew everything before anyone else ever could. Apparently in the previous campaign, one of the players took out their entire race, but apparently missed the ones living in the planet, which was destroyed. But now they're back, living in this planet. Now you must be thinking, what's so bad about them? Well, the only way they could communicate with other species was to use a tentacle. But of course, these were too big for the nose or mouth. So the party drew lots, then we all agreed Victim was going to be their mouthpiece. So now that we know where to go, and don't want to go there, but will be forced to anyway, the party gets set to come find me and leave the city. The king was not happy about that, and let me remind you, this king was a lawful good paladin of a god that for its core tenets were freedom, abolishing slavery, and slaying demons. He proceeds to kidnap our assassin, have his way with her in his dungeon, and command his paladins to find and take out the rest of us for being associated with me, since he knew what I was doing the whole time, but made no effort to stop me. So we then have to fight and take out at least 20 paladins and get our assassin back. As we get to the gate and try to break out of the city, my character, in a private message, is compelled to try and distract the guards to get past the gates, which was to be read as, roll a diplomacy check to have your way with both of the guards while your party members open the gates. As we are escaping, our assassin, for no explicable reason, took some girl hostage from the city streets. This was after the gates were open and we were leaving. This girl turned out to be Curry. So this is the part where I'm supposed to say something, but frankly, you know the story is just wrong, and I'll just leave it at that. As a side note, if you have fan art of my new mascot, be sure to post it in the fan art section of the Discord. Who knows? it might appear in a future video. While this story leaves me speechless, don't let it stop you from saying something in the comments below.